The meaning of mantras and different styles of yoga practice. The influence of sound vibrations. I welcome everyone who is sitting here in the room. I welcome our online viewers of the Yoga Wave. Today we'll talk about mantras, their meanings in different styles, and different types of yoga practice. I'd like to begin this topic with highlighting such a question as what does the sound represent itself, and how can it influence upon our body? The sound represents a wave itself. It is a kind of environmental vibration. If there is movement, there is sound. Thus, in order to obtain a sound, we need to use our force, execute some kind of movement. It may be clapping or some other kind of movement. Where the environment is still, there is no sound. Moreover, the physical component is an important aspect too. In order to transmit the sound wave, an air medium is required. Some experiments were performed where even guitar strings did not sound in the vacuum. It is important that the sound wave always has some kind of frequency. Moreover, another important indicator is its volume. The frequency is schematically represented as a kind of wave, either having very frequent sound vibrations or infrequent ones for low frequencies. The human ear is able to perceive sounds of certain frequencies. Some of the sounds we're just unable to grasp, such as quiet ones or frequencies as infrasound or ultrasound. By the way, ultrasound is heard by cats, dogs, and infrasound is heard by elephants, but the human ear is just unable to perceive such sounds. In the 18th century, the German scientist Ernst Chladni has proved that the sand, which is placed on an elastic oscillating plate, forms up certain geometric figures under the effect of this vibrating plate. These were so-called the Chladni figures. In particular, there is a video on YouTube showing how the plate is connected to a special tool which conducts sound, and the frequency is being changed there. So they show up the frequency, and the sand begins to form up geometric figures of different shapes. These are very beautiful shapes which change. So as you adjust the frequency, so the shape changes. This way, the human has got the opportunity to see the sound. Well, if we can make such an allegory. It is an experiment which can be proved. Indeed, it can be verified at home if you have got the required equipment. People were always giving a very important role to the music influence on our body. Scientists of different times were researching on how the musical instruments affect one or another organ. By the way, as for example, amazing things are being told about the classic music. Psychologists claim that the classical music helps solving family conflicts. The person calms down while listening to it. That is to say that physically, it is an explicable mechanism of harmonic sounds. It performs such an effect that the human conscious comes back to normal. It calms down, and in the state of the quiet mind, the person can take rational decisions, and as a rule, he gets kinder. Interesting things are also being told about the music of Mozart. To such extent that if kneading the dough while the music is on, it will rise 2 times faster than it normally does. Also, that cows listening to the Mozart music give a few times more milk. There are many examples, and apparently people really observed this pattern. There was another interesting experiment which showed that a random handbeat on a table or a different surface leads to changes in pulse rate. That is to say, the rhythm plays a major role. A case from the medical practice shows that the heartbeat sound of a calm, relaxed woman was making the children calm down and fall asleep quite fast. And on the contrary, the heartbeat of a woman who was in a state of anxiety was taking them out of this calmness. They were starting to shout, cry, and instantly waking up. Namely, this is the impact caused by sound or a particular rhythm. But as there are positive examples of music influence, so there are negative ones. In particular, probably many of you have heard that hard rock, club music, takes the person out of his balance, his calmness state, and he becomes more aggressive. This could be compared to a particular form of drunkenness. Obviously, it is impossible to expect such a person to take any adequate decisions, because he is lightly not in his mind. He is dependent on the sound he is exposed to. We know that at the volume level of 20 decibel, the person is experiencing discomfort, and if the volume reaches 150 decibel, then there is a possibility of a fatal outcome. Why does the frequency affect our body? Scientists attribute this to the fact that inside us, each of our organs also has a particular frequency. We're talking about the fact that where is movement, there is also sound. But in fact, there is constantly some kind of movement occurring inside us. Our heart beats, our blood pulsates, each of our organs is working. So to say, the sound frequencies, sound waves also come from us. We simply do not hear them. And when these waves meet with external waves, they influence each other. A specific physical mechanism is being created, and namely the impact of one wave on another one. What is important for us? We have determined how the sound affects our body. Also, we can bring as an example the power of words. It is told that a kind word is even pleasant to a cat, while emotional, negative words, which were said with negative emotions, instantly change our state. Likewise, the music does. There is music which we put on and we begin feeling comfortable. We calm down and our mood changes. And there is music which brings us into a state of melancholy, as for instance. Similarly, our words manifest in the same way. Therefore, by the way, there are silence practices in yoga where the person tries to plunge into his inner world, and during this silence he realizes that there is no actual silence inside him. Inside him is constantly talking some kind of inner voice. Moreover, it is not only his voice, but something that he has already heard once before. So we have found out that the sound does show a great impact on our body, and we come forward to the meaning of mantra. Mantra is a specially formulated combination of syllables, sounds, or phrases which show a very deep effect on our consciousness. Mantras are written in the language of Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the literal language of ancient India, and there is a point of view according to which the language was derived from the Russian nodular letter. Thus, the letters in Sanskrit look as if they are hanged on the primary thread, which is similar to the Russian nodular letter. If you are interested in this topic, you can check it in more detail in the internet, as there are many interesting articles and lectures on this topic. I would just like to cite another interesting example about how a Sanskritist with a worldwide name, Durga Prasad Shastri, came to Russia, and namely to Vologda, and was astonished by the fact that he didn't need a translator. So to say, by knowing Sanskrit, he was able to understand the North Russian dialect. This way we can conclude that our language and Sanskrit really have some kind of a common basis. I say this so you don't take the yoga culture as the Indian one, as something foreign or strange to us. In fact, there is a lot of information, evidence, that this was an integral part of our culture that was simply lost for a while. Concerning Sanskrit, let's see what do classic texts tell about mantras. Here is one of the classic texts of Kiranda Samhita. I'll read you what is being said there. The breath of each living being, when entering, produces the sound sa, and when leaving, the sound ha. Well, if making some sort of comparison, when inhaling, we produce the sound so, and when exhaling, the sound hum. If we try to sense the literal form of the breath, then something similar will turn out. These two sounds form the word so hum, translated as I and that. Under that is meant some kind of a higher consciousness, pure consciousness. If counting, there are about 15 breaths per minute, about 21,600 breaths turn out during a day. Thus the person is unconsciously repeating this unspoken mantra over the whole day. And this mantra is called a Japa Gayatri. In the comment of Swami Satyananda Saraswati or the Hatha Yoga Pradipika book, it is said that not all sounds can be mantras, and not any god's name can be a mantra. It is very often that mantra represents the name of the god, some kind of a higher force in the yoga culture. Mantras are specially composed sound vibrations, which affect our deeper layers of our mind and consciousness. The same author, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, writes in another of his books called Kundalini Tantra that mantra allows to live peacefully among salacity and temptations. Why is it so important? What do you think? Why is it actually important to live quietly among salacity and temptations? What do you think? I agree. So we do not degrade. There was an answer. If we set ourselves a goal to achieve progress in yoga practice, then it is firstly essential to achieve control over our body through asanas and then the control over our mind. If we go further and we try to look inwards, intending to understand who we really are. Hence, not only see ourselves as a body, but answer to the question, who am I? Therefore, the detachment from temptations, desires, is simply necessary for us. And Swami Satyananda Saraswati writes that specifically, that mantra yoga can contribute towards this, can help us in this. By the way, there is another good book called Prana Pranayama Pranavidya, which was written by the student of Swami Satyananda Saraswati, whose name is Swami Niranjananda Saraswati. I also wanted to cite you a paragraph from there. As for example, there are special mantras intended to treat snake bites. When the person repeats this mantra thousands of times, not once, twice, but 1,000, he is being charged with a certain type of energy. Then this energy can be used for someone's healing, someone who has been bitten by a snake. When a person mastering mantra siddhi, where siddhi is a mystical power, says this mantra, the poison disperses, without causing any pain or harm. For understanding the mantra's power, it is necessary to get initiation by the guru, so to say by the teacher. It is not enough to repeat any kind of word or syllable that you have heard or found in the book. Mantra requires the correct phonetic pronunciation, proper intonation, right concentration, and the creation of an appropriate mental image or shape. All this can be learned only from a teacher. Shiva Samhita is also one of the classic texts on yoga. What is being said there? Chapter Mantra, the final chapter of Shiva Samhita. With Japa mantra, where Japa is the repetition of the mantra, you acquire happiness in this and that world. Knowing this greatest mantra, yogi reaches siddhi, where siddhi is the mystical power. Why do I cite you all these things? I do not call you in any way to come home and find the chapter of Shiva Samhita as soon as possible. Read what kind of mantra is this and immediately start practicing it. I am giving you these examples in order to emphasize the real importance of this practice. At all times, including modern authors as Swami Satyananda Saraswati, who was writing his books 20-30 years ago, modern practices, and the practices of ancient times of thousands of years ago were describing similar effects. Therefore, this is a time-tested information, a proven evidence. So I recommend you, if you're interested in yoga, if you're studying it, read these works from the beginning till the end. Read them consistently and check them on your own experience. In particular, the Yoga Sutras Patanjali also writes that siddhi arises at birth with the use of herbs, through mantras and samadhi. Yoga Sutra Patanjali was written about 2200 years ago. Who is Patanjali? Patanjali is a sage. Almost all famous styles of yoga are based on this text. Thus, the contemporary yoga practices take some elements from Yoga Sutras and from our classical texts which were written many years ago. Patanjali suggested practitioners the following scheme, which consists of 8 levels. First level is Yama, second Niyama. Yama and Niyama are the yoga's foundation. These are the moral and ethical fundamentals, the moral code of yoga, hence the rules that must be followed in life, like the control of your speech, actions, not making bad deeds, and so on. After the person has developed these qualities, Patanjali suggests to work out with your physical body. This stage is called asana, physical exercising. Then comes pranayama, breathing techniques. After pranayama follows pratyahara, the state when the practitioner is able to direct his feelings inwards, thus not hear strangers, sounds that surround him when he is practicing, not feel when the mosquito sat on him, and so on, or as another example, not feel the smells that come from our rooms. This is pratyahara. Dharana, dhyana. This is already a meditation form. Dhyana is a kind of a deeper meditation. There is such an information that dhyana consists of several dharanas, and the samadhi stage, which is going beyond the mind. And for many contemporary people, this sounds kind of weird and unclear. Why should we even go outside our mind? After all, if we don't use our mind, we are degrading. In fact, it is essential to understand for a yogi who does the inward practice that he is not mind. So to say that he is not the mind, not these thoughts, because he should learn how to control his thoughts. And namely, the mantra practice is so important for passing on to the pranayama pratyahara stage. She is contributing towards this as it is already a concentration practice. Many people who are just starting to practice yoga may mistakenly equate the mantra concept with prayers. And here, I would like to clarify this point. Mantra is a concentration practice and an inward work with consciousness. It is a concrete work, and if you are practicing mantra for a long time, then you realize that this is a proper work, as it is not as simple to sing for 1 or 2 hours the same mantra. The efforts are directed inwards. The man tries to defeat himself at some extent. What does defeating oneself mean? He tries to defeat his addictions, his dependencies, his non-obedient body. He tries to defeat his non-obedient mind and makes him concentrate only on the sound, not get distracted on other things. Most of times, mantras do not contain wishes. Of course, mantras are different, and those mantras that are long, detailed, we will also talk about them today, basically they may contain wishes, but as a rule, they are short, monosyllabic, and do not contain any wishes or requests. Through mantra, the practitioner tries to concentrate on the chosen God, or a higher power, and merge with it, get to know it by means of this long concentration. Thus, when we concentrate on something, we try to understand it. In this case, we try to understand the God, manifested in the sound when interpreting the mantra Om, as it is considered that mantra Om is the embodiment of the divine power in sound. It is the greatest sound manifestation, an attempt to merge with this object that you are getting acquainted with. While the prayer, if taking the most common meaning, comes from the word to pray. The prayer itself is a kind of request, wish. If considering this explanation, then the mantra and prayer are opposite in meaning. There are also different prayers. But if we sing a mantra, we are working on our self-improvement. We're not asking for anything. However, there is also another point of view on the subject, that it is not bad to ask for something from the divine powers, as this is the workout with our pride, with our ego. Therefore, when the person is asking for something, he recognizes that there are much higher powers and he is not afraid, not scared. Thus, he can ask for some kind of things. However, he shouldn't ask for himself, for the fulfillment of some material gains or wishes, but he should ask for some personal traits that will lead him to a higher concentration state. Or he may ask this for others, for the same kind of blessings and not material gains. Based on this, mantras are very similar to glorifications. Japa is the repetition of mantra. Glorification is the practice towards acquiring traits of the honored power. It is considered that glorification is like a glory fusion of energies. When we are glorifying a god, some kind of a higher power, which is not comparable, is greater and wiser than us, then we are being filled with this power for this concentration. There are even such words as this is a God's power which flows from one jug to another, flows into our mind, and this is how we acquire its positive divine traits. Another interesting point, Krishna from Bhagavad Gita says that the highest form of sacrifice is considered the Japa sacrifice, and namely the sacrifice by means of mantra. This way, we can understand that this is a real work. It is not like asking or praying. It is precisely an inner work. According to classic texts on yoga, our physical body is not the only thing we represent. We have three bodies. The gross body, called as Sthula Sharira, it consists of an anatomic sheath, Annamaya Kosha. Sukshma Sharira is the subtle body and consists of three sheaths. Pranamaya Kosha, the pranic sheath, where the vital energy flows prana. Here we find all types of wind: Vayu, Apanavayu, Pranavayu, Dhanavayu, Sammanavayu, and Vyanavayu. Also, the mantle sheath is included in the subtle body, called Manomaya Kosha, and the intellectual or wisdom sheath, Vijnanamaya Kosha. And the third human body is called Karana Sharira, which is the casual body, and it contains the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath, which is totally impossible to be understood by the human mind because it is beyond our comprehension. Why is it important? It is important for the following reason. In the pranic body, in the subtle body, in the pranamaya kosha we have nadi. Nadi are the energetic channels through which the vital energy prana flows. All the classic texts on yoga claim that the human nadi are fully contaminated. Contaminations represent the rest of our sensible desires and emotions, our negative emotions, some behavior patterns that we follow, our habits, passions, wishes, all connections to material world, which don't let us move our consciousness up. These contaminations impede the perfection in yoga. As for instance, it is considered that when nadis are being cleaned up, the human body becomes instantly flexible. This is one of the indicators. Mantra also has an influence on it. Mantra helps in the nadi cleansing. By the way, it is written in Karana Samhita that there are several ways to cleanse nadi, with mantras and without. You can check it in the source of information how exactly it is being done. And at this point, I think it is appropriate to talk about why do people actually come to yoga. Practice goals. Let's think and list the reasons for the person to come to the class and spread out his yoga mat. Gain an understanding of his inner world. Wonderful option, the best one. What are other reasons? To lose weight. Easily. But there is a much more effective way. There is a very precise comparison regarding this subject. Losing weight during yoga is like driving nails with a microscope. I agree. It's true that many people come for health. Even some doctors begin giving advices on yoga practice for better health. For someone, it is fashion, while for others, it's something exotic. For some people, this may be even a tool for stress relief. Therefore, the man does something during his social life, strives for something, bustles, and then comes to yoga and relieves his stress. And then again, it repeats. The reasons are very different. I do not claim that some of them are good while others are bad. They're just different, and we need to have an idea about them as we are passing to different yoga styles, and it is important to understand where did they actually arise from. The modern styles appeared about 100 years ago. They began forming up when yoga was being popularized. Before, yoga was transmitted from master to the student. This was such a transmission technique. Yoga practice spread to the West in the 20th century. It reached a mass audience, and teachers tried to adapt yoga to different population segments, so that people practice it at least somehow, so they practice it at least for their weight loss or for a better health. This is how different yoga styles emerged. And smoothly we come to the third style, which is called Ashtanga-vinyasa yoga. The founder of the style is Patanjali Joyce, who lived between 1915 and 2009. And if we talk about its characteristic features, then it's the gradual practice which should be regular. There are 6 flows in Vinyasa Yoga, ranging from simple to difficult. The third stage is called Yoga Chikitsa, which can be translated as yoga medicine. And namely, this is a basic set of exercises which help the person heal his body. This is a fixed flow of asanas performed by the practitioner during 12 to 18 months, the same specific flow. And only after mastering this flow, the practitioner moves on to the next stages. There are 6 of them. The Ashtanga structure vinyasa is compared to an iceberg, where the tip of the iceberg is the asana, physical exercises, and the underwater part represents the drishti, the eye concentration, and bandhas, the energetic locks and breathing. There is also used the ujjayi breathing, and a very important aspect is the use of vinyasa. Vinyasa is a connecting movement, a smooth one from asana to asana. Thus, asanas smoothly flow one into another. Such practice is very fluent, but on the other hand, very dynamic also. In particular, the first 2 stages include the Surya Namaskar practice, an Ashtanga tradition of Vinyasa Yoga. So namely, this tradition has an opening and a closing mantra. By the way, I would like to mention that many fitness centers prohibit the use of mantras, as for many people this is something weird, unclear, having an impression of a sect. Therefore, they often go away from it. The opening mantra is called Vande Gurunam, which usually sounds during our yoga classes. The music which is put as a background for yoga classes is an adapted version of mantras. Mantras that are sung by masters as Pataphi Jois are monotonous with minimum changes in melody so that the mind calms down. Hence, there is a specific rhythm, specific notes. And I really liked a lot one of the interpretations which I found in the internet.
Vande Gurunam Charanarvinde Sandarshita Swatma Sukhavabodhe Nishreyase Jangalikayamane Samsara Hala Hala Mohashanti Abahu Purushakaram Shankachakrasi Dharinam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim
Quite often, the teacher sings and the audience repeats after him. By the way, you can find the Iyengar voice records on the internet. Just look what is the translation of this wonderful mantra. Adoration of the lotus feet of the masters, who reveal to me the endless joy of the true nature of my soul. I bow before the one who is the unsurpassed forest hermit, Shiva the ascetic. It is considered that Shiva gave the world the science about yoga, who is able to save me from the ignorance poison of the limited material existence. This is the first part of the mantra that opens the Ashtanga class. It continues with the Patanjali welcoming. I salute before Patanjali, the incarnation of the firstborn snake Adishesha, whose upper body has a human form, whose arms hold a conch and a disc, who is crowned by a thousand-headed cobra. In the Vedic tradition, Patanjali is the Adishesha incarnation. Adishesha is illustrated in the form of the thousand-headed cobra, protecting Vishnu god. In the Slavic culture, this is also Vishnu god. And Shesha, or Ananda Shesha, or Adishesha, is the permanent companion of Vishnu. It is considered that when Vishnu was being incarnated on earth in the form of the Prince Rama, Shesha was his brother called Lakshma. When Vishnu was incarnated as Krishna, then Shesha was his brother Balarama. And at some point, this king of Nagas, the Serpent King, who is the personification of infinity, who holds all the planets of our system on his cobra head as based on old writings, saw the Shiva dance and really wanted to learn it. And for this purpose, Vishnu gave him the birth in form of Patanjali on earth. There is a legend where Patanjali has fallen in the form of a snake in the palm of his yogi mother and then turned into a person. Patanjali really dedicated all his life to yoga study and left a great work after him, which is still being used in Yoga Sutras. Why is it important to salute and give homage to some kind of teachers, some kind of sages, some kind of Shiva? What do you think? The fact is that before, and actually nowadays also, when the teacher transmits his knowledge to the student, he becomes as a father to him. So this is the person who guides him on his yoga path throughout his life, who helps him. A word of the teacher is law to the student. If we recall Iyengar, he was tearing his ligaments just because his teacher was telling him to do one or another asana, because his teacher was an authority to him, and one should do what the teacher tells. Therefore, the behavior towards the teacher has been always very exalted, and it is real that we gain the qualities of the person we honor. That is to say, that this is a real energy exchange. There is also a closing mantra of the Ashtanga-vinyasa practice.
Swasti prajabhya pahi balayatam nyayena margena mahi mahishaha go brahmanibhyaha shubhamastu nicham loka samasta sukhino bhavantu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
May prosperity be glorified. May the food be in abundance. May rules rule the world with law and justice. May there be peace, tranquility, and piety everywhere. This is namely an example of the mantra having a wish. May prosperity be glorified. May the food be in abundance. But don't get me wrong. It doesn't refer to our tables that are full of food. No, not in any way. We will talk about the importance of food in yoga practice. The line Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu is also used as a separate mantra. You can listen to its beautiful performance. It is also translated as May all beings be peaceful, calm, and happy. Namely, this is a kind of wish and that should be addressed to gods. The next yoga style that we will talk about is Kundalini Yoga. It was founded by the yogi Patanjali, who lived between 1929 and 2004. The following principles are present in this yoga practice. The extra effort principle, the rhythm, the music is being used, the practice is very dynamic. The feeling of the energy uplift. The practitioner tries to feel his energy going up. Mantra is a call to connect with the source of learning. There is also the connection with Sikhism. It is believed that Kundalini Yoga is under the Sikhism egregor, as Yogi Bhajan was a Sikh. The following mantras are being used and sung during a Kundalini practice. I bow to the creative wisdom, I bow to the divine teacher. Mangala Charm Mantra. I bow to the primal wisdom, I bow to the wisdom for the ages, I bow to the true wisdom, I bow to the great divine wisdom. And very often the mantra Sat Nam is being used. This is also often used as a greeting by practitioners. Sat Nam, Sat is light, and Nam doesn't really need translation, as in Russian it means for us. So it is light for us, roughly speaking, or I am the truth, or the light is within me. Very shortly about Vini Yoga. Its founder is the Sikhachar, who lived between 1939 and 2016. This practice is often targeted at therapeutic objectives, and it has a very individual approach. Here is both statics and dynamics combined. An interesting feature is the breathing system, with the breath from the top to the bottom. If we are doing a full yogi breath from the bottom of our belly, it happens vice versa in Vini Yoga, an opposite process. It doesn't have any restrictions, suitable for everyone, and it is used for medicinal purposes. This practice can begin as with some ancient text studies, so with mantras, meditations, or asanas. The classes are chosen individually, depending on the tasks which are set by the practitioner. The Sikhachar has written something important in his book, The Heart of Yoga, available to all beginners, and namely, he wrote that mantra is universal. And after all years of his teaching career, he gets more and more convinced that the sound effect plays a huge role and brings a tremendous effect for a practice. The Sikachar says himself, I will never force a person to sing a mantra, a Western person who is not familiar with this tradition, but I recommend to do this because the effect is tremendous. This is the opinion of the Sikachar. Yoga Nidra. This is a very interesting style. Yoga Nidra is the yoga of dreams, the practice between sleep and the state of consciousness. It is practiced in Shavasana, where the whole concentration is directed towards the instructor voice. During this class, you form a kind of sankalpa. This term refers to your goal, your intention. So to say, what is what you want to achieve? You kind of rotate your consciousness around different parts of your body. You focus on one part, then another part of your body. You also control your feelings and sensations. As an example, you imagine that you're cold or hot. It is done in this way so you could reject afterwards these feelings. So that you can bring your attention to breath, for instance, and not feel anything anymore. Not feel your hands, neither your feet. You perform visualizations. In Yoga Nidra practice, mantra can be used as a mean of relaxation. In particular, the mantra Om is used, which is performed soundless, mentally, and the mantra Soham, which we talked about before, so-called the Japa Gayatri, the unexpressed mantra, which symbolizes our breath. The next style we will discuss is Shivananda Yoga. The founder is Swami Shivananda Saraswati, who lived between 1887 and 1963. This is a very soft style, performed in a relaxed way. Shavasanas are performed several times during a class, and the breath is very smooth and deep. There are 12 basic asanas. The 5 principles of Shivananda Yoga are the proper exercise asana, the proper breath pranayama, the proper relaxation shavasana, the proper food vegetarianism, positive thinking and meditation, Vedanta and Dhyana. I found the description of the following practices. Kirtan. It's a meditative chanting of Sanskrit mantras. Thus, following the tradition, the way it is done in India, the mantras are sung with musical instruments. The Sanskrit energy corresponds to nadi. Mantras lead to the vibration of the energy channels. An important fact is that the chanting of mantras is based on melodies raga. Raga is a musical genre, having one of the most favorable effects on the physical body and mind. It sets at rest. Kirtan is the easiest way to direct the mind towards the inner silence. This says the official website of Shivananda Yoga. Moreover, the satsang practice is being described, which includes 3 points. At the beginning, this is a 30-minute silence meditation, afterwards a meditative chanting of mantras, and a lecture on yoga philosophy and psychology. Yoga Iyengar. For many of you, it may sound surprising that mantras are also present in a style that gives so much attention to details. Correct performance of asanas. However, in Iyengar tradition, mantras were also present. A thoughtful workout of each asana. This is what characterizes the Iyengar style if you're not familiar with it. Here are, by the way, the Iyengar's principles. Accuracy in creating the stay, mind concentration, efforts distribution throughout the body, method from simple to complex, dosing and frequency, method of static tension, no dynamics, security of stay in the ninth posture, therefore it is available to many people, use of props, individual approach and accessibility, and moreover it can be also used for therapeutic purposes. This is Iyengar Yoga. The use of props, this is what the method is famous for. The use of blocks, bolsters, belts, straps, pillows, and many other additional props which help the person understand how one or another muscle works, how to build up a particular posture.
Malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena Yopakarotam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi
We were already discussing the invocation to sage Patanjali in the Ashtanga-vinyasa style. The first part of the mantra can be translated in the following form. Let us bow before the noblest of sages Patanjali, who gave yoga for serenity and sanctity of mind, grammar for clarity and purity of speech, and medicine for perfection of health. In reality, Patanjali's activity captured many things about yoga. Therefore, this is like an adoration of this teacher, thanks to whom many styles and trends emerged. All the styles listed before appeared in the last century. By the way, it is worth mentioning that these are not the only styles that use mantras during their classes. In Kriya Yoga and Tra Yoga, it is also being used. And as a rule, fitness-targeted styles do not use mantras, where yoga is seen more like gymnastics, a set of physical exercises, and where the spirituality aspects are not covered. Ancient writings are also offering us a set of different methods for reaching the state of mind purity, such as Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Thus, along with such styles, there are also styles of mantra yoga. These are described in ancient texts 1,000 of years ago. There is such a meaning of mantra that it is something that protects the one who received it. In particular, the power of a mantra can be seen in the Mahabharata book. This picture illustrates the scene of the meeting between Kunti and the god of sun, Surya. Due to Kunti's asceticism and hard work, she received a mantra that was capable of calling any god and receiving a son from him. This is the power that can possess a sound. If you read Mahabharata, you can note that warriors were able to use some kind of celestial weapons with the help of mantras. With the use of mantras, they could materialize something into reality. How to practice the mantra yoga? Ways to perform a mantra. Singing out loud is called Vaihari Japa. It is an optimal performance for beginners and practitioners who are in low spirits. It generates very fast mind stability and gives peace. When having difficulties during meditations, Vaihari can be firstly practiced for an hour, and then the meditation practice will feel easier. Why is it important on the early stage? Because when you don't practice it for a long time, then your mind gets often distracted. It is very difficult to sit on a place and think about specific words which you pronounce. Your mind is constantly distracted. Thus, singing out loud is your aid. You focus on your voice. Only after mastering it, it is recommended to practice Upanch Japa, singing in whisper. The sound should be heard only by the pronouncer. Thus, it should be very quiet performance. This technique is suitable for practitioners performing japa several hours a day. In particular, it is written about 8-10 hours a day in texts. Can you imagine what kind of level is this? It is recommended to perform it for at least 3 months before passing on to another stage. This is the singing in whisper, Upansha Japa. The third method is the monastic japa, chanting in thoughts, mind chanting. The mantra is pronounced in mind without moving the lips. It is available to practitioners who are advanced in concentration. Its performance is recommended only after mastering the two previous methods, Vaihari and Upanch japas. The following method is very interesting and is called Likhit Japa. This is the writing of mantras, a written performance. Writing mantras hundreds of times, and it is considered that as smaller the letters are, so bigger the concentration is. This method of mantra repetition is always combined with mind repetition. As we write, we mentally pronounce it. Therefore, it is considered to be very effective. The mantra is written on different materials like leaves, birch bark, special leaves, with a special ink or different colors. The mantra should be written very diligently, keeping the proportion together with a sense of beauty. What else can be said about mantra yoga and its benefits? We can mention the fact that it leads to pratyahara, the concentration practice. The mantra repetition should be a natural process. Your mind should be the observer, and what is essential is that the mind begins to wander, and you don't have to pull it up. Don't try to force yourself to think about something else. There is such a comparison that you act as an observer, you're watching from the side. When some thoughts are coming, you simply watch them. Let them just leave in the same quiet manner. It shouldn't cause any tension. It is also recommended not to wish anything worldly during the mantra practice. And it doesn't matter the type of work the man is engaged in during the day. If he has the opportunity in some kind of form to repeat the mantra, whether it is aloud, in whisper, or mentally, it is necessary to try to use this chance, because it will render only positive effects. Also, if you read any kind of text, then you'll probably meet the description of Bija mantra. Bija, as the word itself, is translated as seed or grain. It is believed that this is one of the most fundamental components of the mantra. If mantras are big, then Bija mantra can be used separately. So Bija bears the most important thing, the essence of the mantra. Bija mantra descriptions that influence different chakras are very common ones. Well, let's say especially the ones about our most important chakras, the 7 chakras of the human energetic body. As for example, Lam Muladhara or the earth element, Vam Svadhisthana, water element, Ram Manipura, fire, Yam Anahata, heart center, air element, Ham Vishuddha, ether element, Sham Agya, eyebrow center. There are different interpretations about the concept of an element because someone writes on the space and the light element, although in the classic understanding of elements there are no such concepts. And the mantra Om, which is considered the highest mantra and acts on the Sahasrara, the highest center. A personal Bija, many gods have their mantras. As for instance, mantra Ham is the mantra of Shiva, Bija, the mantra of Shiva. Therefore, the mantra Shiva Ham also exists. I am Saraswati Shrim Lakshmi. If you have some kind of connection with the god, you feel the resonance while concentrating on these images, you may read Bija mantra. It may be very effective. And now we come to the most important discussion, to mantra Om. There is a very nice quote from the Maitri Upanishad. Body is a bow, Om is the arrow, mind is tip, obscurity is the goal. How do you think? What kind of obscurity is meant? What kind of an arrow is this? What is this obscurity? Right, obscurity is defilement. It is difficult to overestimate the meaning of mantra Om in yogi culture, Vedic writings. Almost all mantras begin and finish with it. Similarly, many texts start with this mantra. And I hope that through your own experience, you will understand that this is not a foreign culture to us, that this is really a great practice. What do classic texts specifically say about mantra Om? Yoga Sutra Patanjali, the word Ishvari, it's God, Aum or Om. It is pranava. Pranava is the synonym of mantra Om. Thus, it is the same. It is manifested with the word Om. Therefore, it is the representation and manifestation of the divine, God's manifestation in a sound. Shiva Purana, the supreme Brahman, the truth, the bliss, Amrita, the greatest of the greatest and the highest risen, expresses itself in one monosyllabic mantra Om. Yoga Vasishtha. Om is the non-dual consciousness, free from all distortions. Everything that exists in this universe is a single consciousness. Even in this body, made out of meat, bones and blood, it is the shining intelligence, shining with the light of the sun. Interesting quotes about mantra Om can be identified in Mahabharata. The syllable Aum is the beginning of all Vedas. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says namely the words, I am the cleansing power of the sound Om. We have an article on our website where we have collected all sorts of quotes from all kinds of texts. The document is very, very big, and it is considered that one of the criteria for sanity, common sense, is finding the answer to your questions in holy texts. Vedic scriptures. And exactly this article is the evidence that Vedic scriptures contain a huge amount of this mantra mentionings and contain its value. What does the Bihar school of yoga tell about mantra Om? The Bihar school was founded by Swami Satyananda Saraswati, the same person who describes the yoga nidra. In particular, the yoga nidra represents one of the fundamentals of the Bihar school. There is a very nice detailed description. When pronouncing Aum, one should be aware of the sound, whether it comes out loud or in your mind, and the reflection on the meaning of Aum. And why is it written Aum and not Om? Or why do we pronounce A or on our classes? I recall that once Vedagor was asked about how should be the mantra Om read. Om or Aum? How should it be pronounced correctly, or maybe there is a different way to do it? And Alexey Vasilyevich responded, and how is it right to say, Sasha or Alexander? Hence, this represents the same meaning. It simply has various versions. Therefore, don't make yourself doubt or be confused about that. If it is being written as Aum, it is the same as Om, or the same as A or Om. Mantra Aum is one of the most powerful methods for rapid relaxation of your whole body and mind. Aum can be repeated fast or slow. As a matter of fact, the author of the book says that if you read it fast, then you can join the pace with the beat of your heart, and you can do it in your mind. Hence, if the level of your practice permits you pronounce Om mentally and at the same time feel the rhythm of your heart, then with every beating, you should mentally pronounce Om. Moreover, there is a quote from Dhyana Bindu Upanishada, which is a very ancient Vedic scripture, that the sound Om should be harmonious, like the continuous flow of an oil stream, and like the vibration of a bell. This is the way to chant Om, and the way to really know the meaning of Vedas. Talking concretely about the performance technique that we suggest at our club. Mantra consists out of 4 sounds, A, O, U, M. And AO takes about 2/3 of the sound. The 2 remaining letters UM take about 1/3 of the sound, and the sound M gradually fizzles. The volume, the rate, and the pace are chosen individually. Of course, if you have your teacher, your guru, your mentor, he can advise you how it is better to do it. But mantra Om is considered to be universal. And this is not only my personal opinion, but also the opinion of many competent people, and even holy texts tell about this. You can practice it by your own. The loud performance may possibly cause a brighter effect. As for example, the sound of bells or singing bowls, which sound in a specific manner and quite loud, can faster synchronize with our inner vibrations. At the same time, we have just read in Upanishada that the performance in whisper is more effective, and the inner performance is even more effective. Therefore, try it both ways, and gradually feel with your body which option better suits you. The pitch and pace is also selected individually. It is believed the higher the sound, the higher the chakra is, which is being activated by means of this practice. It is also recommended to use rosary during the mantra practice. And it is considered that rosary is like a whip for mind control. So to say, it doesn't allow us to get distracted. It takes us back to the present moment. The fretted rosary is called mala and contains 108 beads. 108 bits is the number, which is also very often described in text. It is considered to be sacred. And if you wish to get better familiarized with it, we also have relevant material on our website. What is important when using rosary? On the one hand, I've met the point of view which says that any counting in yoga is like feeding one's pride. Like, oh, now I can hold the breath for so many seconds. Oh, I've read the mantra for so many times. Therefore, it is considered that the person feeds his pride on the one hand. But on the other hand, you can set a goal to read the mantra Om for 100,000 of times, for example, as it is considered that this is the necessary amount for the changes to happen inside us. Our consciousness now is literally overwhelmed with information, music, sound, memories. Therefore, in order to get rid of all this garbage that we don't use anymore, one should concentrate for a long time on the mantra Om, for example, on something high. Hence, it is necessary to count. And this goal represents a very specific instruction for our mind. So you know, for example, that you have to read this mantra for so many times, and the mind doesn't have the chance to say, oh, I've already read it, I chanted it, I'm always mentally repeating Om. So there are no excuses. You know exactly. There are special counters that are attached to the rosary, and for the same way of moving the small beads, they are being counted as hundreds and then thousands. It is considered that the direction of the movement should be pushed away from you. In such a way, you'll cultivate altruism. And on the contrary, if you always pull towards yourself, then by life analogy, you do it for yourself. Therefore, it is believed that such a mechanism influences the mind as well, and you'll gradually cultivate these qualities in life as well. By the way, Andrei Verbo was telling that the best material which is able to accumulate energy during a practice is the rhinestone. A small advertising, we have a wonderful instructor who does rosaries manually from all kinds of materials. If you're thinking on buying one or looking for a gift, this is a very beautiful manual work performed by an instructor who teaches and practices by himself. Here are some pictures of namely these rosaries. Asanas are very significant. It is considered that the best way to chant the mantra is in a cross-legged position. The ideal asana is the Padmasana, accordingly one-third on the thigh and another on the same. But better to choose such a body position that allows you to sit for a long period of time. Practice yoga, asanas in parallel, and with time, with liberating your hip joints, your body will allow you to stay longer and longer in this position. The next option is Ardha Padmasana. This is when one of our feet remains on the thigh. Siddha Yoni Asana or Siddhasana. Siddhasana is the ideal position for men. Siddha Yoni Asana, the ideal position for women. This is the same posture, just with a different foot. For men, the right leg is on the top, while the foot is placed on the perineum, and for women is the contrary. The left leg is on the top. It is described as the ideal posture, and it is considered to be very effective for mantrayana. Sukhasana, or the comfortable position, cozy position with crossed legs, the way it turns out. If you recently began practicing, you have your joints stiffed, then this is also quite an acceptable option. If this turns difficult, then the Vajrasana position may be suitable. When your pelvis is on your heels and one finger is on the top of another one, the big toe of one foot is on the top of the big toe of another foot. From one side, it may feel that this posture is easier than any other of the asanas with crossed legs. However, if you sit in this position for a long period of time, you'll feel that this is an ascetic posture for your ankles. Mudras play the same significant role. What mudras can be used when chanting Om? The mudra Namaste. It is recommended not to pull apart your elbows, not squeeze your palms, to put them naturally so you can sit in this posture as long as possible, so you don't feel a big discomfort in your hands. Also, an effective mudra is considered the Jnana mudra or the knowledge mudra. It is when you join the second finger and the thumb. You can lightly touch the both fingers, or you can touch the phalanx of the thumb with your second finger. It is like an active variation of the same mudra. There is no difference. Some books recommend to raise up the hands, while others to let them down. What is actually a mudra and what it is intended for? Through asanas, mudras, we direct the energy towards a particular path, and it is said that when we join the second and the third fingers, a signal to begin the meditation is automatically sent to our brain. Another mudra that can be used is palm in palm and joining the two thumbs together, called the Dhyana mudra. What concerns the objects you concentrate on during this mantra, the easiest way is to focus on your voice at the beginning, to try tracing whether you hear it or not, as it is taught in the Bihar school. It is also recommended to concentrate on the upper chakras, or on the Agya chakra, the center between the eyebrows, or Sahasrara chakra, the top of your head. For more information, I recommend you to watch the lecture of Andrei Verba on this topic. He shortly describes the mantra Om practice and talks more about complex variation of concentration. The stage which is achieved with this mantra on early stages represents the real peace of mind. Thoughts vanish, new forces appear. State of peace and state of santosha comes up. Santosha is the satisfaction when you feel that in fact you don't need so much from this life. You feel the present moment, that you're comfortable in it, and everything that happens, happens the way it should. If you're in a state of agitation, excitement, if you feel tired, try to practice this mantra for a while. If you have got the chance, and you will feel its effect. It is recommended to perform it in a circle of like-minded people, or in your family circle if you have such an opportunity, because when several voices merge together, the effect can be much greater. And it is not necessary to sing it simultaneously if you sing with someone. If you participated in collective practices, you may be familiar that when some stage sound stops interrupting, everyone is singing following his pace. Om sounds always. Someone finishes it while the other begins. It is believed that this practice cleans up not only our mind, but also our speech, and it is also used for space cleansing. Thus, when singing Om, we don't just deal with ourselves, but we also exert a beneficial effect on the space that surrounds us. In this regard, there are recommendations to sing Om 3 times, actually before any date and before taking the meal as well. So to say, it is a specific form of meal cleansing. It doesn't concern only the food cleansing. By means of this practice, you exalt the meal, so you don't perceive it anymore as a fast meal. Instead, you let enter a new strength, a new energy, by doing it consciously. And as a rule, when you come to the process of food intake very consciously, then you will unlikely eat a lot, because you will feel the necessary quantity. You will not overeat in this case because you will not perceive this food as an object of emotional satisfaction, but rather as an energy source that will help you further move on. Therefore, it is recommended to chant Om before and after the meal as well. During the practice, especially the collective one, you may hear some interesting sounds. If you have the opportunity to take part in a seminar where the mantra Om will be performed, preferably starting from half an hour and more, you should certainly not miss this chance. I heard examples from many people who were beginners in their practice. However, they were able to hear bell sounds, hear singing bowls, hear amazing things and amazing sounds that could not appear by themselves in the room they were practicing it. So there are some interesting mystical things happening that you can easily engage with even on the early stages of your practice. And now we come to another important topic, the qualities of the one practicing mantrayana. What recommendations there are listed in yogic books of different styles for the one who will perform these practices? The aspiration to comply with yama and niyama. One should avoid empty talks, overeating, non-vegetarian food, bad companies. Why? Concerning empty talks, long speeches make our mind unstable. And in general, why do we need empty talks? This is an energy waste. Definitely, this is a waste of your energy and waste of time that could have been used more effectively. Overeating and non-vegetarian food. For the person that can't restrain himself, can't control the amount of food intake, it is very unlikely that he will learn how to control his mind. Therefore, it is important to keep the balance. The reasons for bad gangs are evident, I suppose. An important aspect is the desire for recognition and honoring, which represents one of the main obstacles. Stories about personal experience impede the growth. It is written in many holy texts that by practicing mantras, you can acquire some supernatural capabilities, but it is preferably to keep it in secret and not tell it to anyone. It is said that the secret is the key to success. One should be proud of them, as the capabilities come so they can suddenly also leave. It is important to be humble, to talk less about it. Why the need for consistent practice is important. In order to learn something, there should be the regular practice. When a person learns how to walk, how to play on some kind of music instrument, he needs a regular practice. Similarly, if you are not going to maintain a skill, you can lose it in the same way. Therefore, it is considered that if one has acquired knowledge in something, he should support it. Resistance when problems arise. If something doesn't work out, if you don't reach the desirable effect, it is preferably not to lose heart, not to get upset. Again, you may talk to a friend or a competent person, or perhaps you should take a break, but don't let that knock you out from your way. It is also told that very often yoga practitioners make the mistake and strive to live in solitude, straight on the early stage of their practice. And it is described that this is even worse for the beginner to live in solitude than having the life among emotional objects, because the ignited passion has the habit to go away very fast. Therefore, the person finds himself alone. He gets worse, he leaves everything, he comes back and doesn't even remember about mantra. Discard the bad habits that only lead to energy and time waste. Interesting materials and mantras towards elements of nature can be found. If we perform them, we harmonize our relationship with one or another elemental force. Why is it important? As we are born in this physical body, we live on this planet among the earth, water, fire, air, and ether. We need to live in harmony with all this. All these elements are present within us. Om Prithvi Namaha, the earth mantra, which manifests itself in solid materials within us, our bones, for example. Om Varuna Namaha, the water mantra, it is our blood. Om Agni Namaha, fire. Om Vayu Namaha, air. Om Akasha Namaha, ether. And we could mention a general mantra, mantra Om Prakriti Namaha, where Prakriti means nature, substance. By the way, now there is such a big amount of very beautiful music mantras that you can listen and choose by yourself. Mantras to various gods. Thus, these are mantras that let you acquire some qualities. Basing on my personal experience, I can say that the concentration on some of these forces does really give calmness, particularly in that energetic area which he responds for. Let's bring the mantra Lakshmi as an example. It translates as "O the Supreme Ancestor, who is manifested in the form of the goddess Lakshmi." This is one unique force, just one of her aspects. Accept my respectful greeting. This is one version of this translation. So I honor this goddess, who responds for prosperity, well-being, for any harmonious situation in our life. Therefore, when performing this mantra, you can really sense the harmony with yourself and harmony with the surrounding world. If there is any kind of a reply, as it is said that a very important moment in practicing mantra is the ability to sense the channel between you and some god whom you are addressing. And it is not necessary to practice a lot for experiencing it. Your feelings, your faith, and your intention is what really matters. And namely, if your thoughts are clean, if you honor this great force which is manifested in a God's form, manifested in a very beautiful form. So you can find beautiful illustrations of different gods. You can read many interesting, enlightening stories that you can learn something from them, and you will definitely charge yourself with these qualities by means of this energy exchange through the mantra. And now, our closing slide, music and yoga. Is it help or obstacle? Why is it help? As a rule, the majority of people like some kind of music. Everyone has its favorite style, favorite artist, and it is very difficult to direct yourself towards your inner peace, to refuse any type of music and only listen to yourself and sing the mantra Om. I recommend everyone who begins his practice to find for himself a mantra performance in a style which is close to him, and switch to this music for a while. I assure you that you'll find mantras in any kind of genre. There are many artists, very beautiful ones, orchestral mantras, or on the contrary, monotonous mantras. There are various styles. By the way, in our Kontakte group, we have a big selection of mantras. But at the same time, music in yoga can be an obstacle for the same reason that I have already mentioned. When you begin your inner practice and you try to calm down your thoughts, you start hearing everything that sounds in your head. And as a rule, these are some kind of sounds from your past. Sometimes we are surprised by our memory, by how much information is kept in there. You were living, and suddenly you remembered something that happened long time ago. Some kind of an event that was forgotten, and it suddenly popped up in your memory. The same way happens with a song. You woke up, you didn't listen to TV, you didn't turn on the radio, and here, boom, something is playing from your childhood or your adolescence. And very often it is something that you don't want to hear anymore. Similarly, the words of our people can pop up. Therefore, the more music we listen to, the more we fill in ourselves with this information. Specifically, mantra helps to take away gradually the amount of this inner noise. Another important thing that I like to finish with, perhaps you shouldn't break off among the big selection that you have and practice everything you get acquainted with. Try to find for yourself something which is the most important. And my advice, and the advice of many books and competent masters, is that it is difficult to find something better than mantra Om, because mantra Om contains within itself all other mantras. Hence, her true meaning is so all-embracing that nothing else is actually needed. This mantra is sufficient for the whole life, to practice and practice it and develop yourself with its help. It is believed that the universe is born with this sound and destroys together with the sound of Om. Many thanks to our online viewers. Practice yoga, and I wish you all the best. Om.